All right, guys, so on the way to look at a 2009 Forester 2.5X base model off of Facebook Marketplace. Scrolling Marketplace as I do several times a day, came across this car. It is local to me. It is a black '09, 288,000 miles, automatic. We're going to go take a look at it. They're asking $2,000. Apparently, it has a rod knock. Probably has blown head gaskets too. But we're gonna go out and check it out. I'm definitely not gonna give $2,000 for it. If it's parts only, I'd probably top out at about $600 offer. If it's something I think I can fix based off of what I could resell it for and probably what I had to put in it, I'd probably be topped out at about $1,500 on an offer, but would rather be closer to $1,000. So let's head out there and take a look at this thing. So guys, we just got back from looking at that 2009 Forester 2.5X model. And as you can tell from the video clip, I didn't get much video. I was able just to walk around it and show you the inside, the outside, under the hood, and listen to it running. I was able to get it to jump start and run, as you heard in the video. There was some glitter in the oil. The owner told me that it likely has a rod knock. I could hear a slight knock, but it wasn't that bad. I also didn't rev it up too much. But it did not like moving around the yard. I actually drove it and it stalled out on me 2 times. It's very low on power, which would indicate that there is an issue with the engine. Anytime there's a rod bearing failure, you lose a lot of power, and normally on the automatic cars, you stall out quite frequently without giving it quite a bit of gas. So there's that issue. The engine is totally gonna have to be replaced or totally rebuilt, short block included. Basically, every orifice on the engine is leaking oil. The cam cover gaskets, likely the spark plug tube seals, timing belt, water pump, all that componentry would have to be replaced. The interior was pretty decent. It needs a good cleaning, but other than that, the only thing I saw broken really was the passenger side dash AC vent. It was broken and pushed in from the trim piece there. Should be able to pop that off and super glue that back in place without much issue or having to replace the part there. There was an aftermarket radio in the dash. Correction on the mileage, as you saw in the video clip, 277,000 miles rather than the 288 that was listed on the ad. All the glass seemed to be in good condition. The paint wasn't bad. It could probably be buffed out and look pretty decent. The tires had decent tread on them. They were 2017 date stamp. They did have a little bit of dry rot on them, so tires may be iffy, but they were a match set, which is a good thing on a Subaru. You never want to see mismatched tires, as we talked about in the previous video on tire rotation and the importance of having good tires on a Subaru for the all-wheel drive system. Other than that, I talked to the owner. When I went down there, her boyfriend met me. She was at work. Talked to him. He didn't know a ton about the car, so just basically I gathered what I could see. It was a little bit low on coolant, so I could assume that it's probably using a little bit of coolant, likely an internal head gasket leak or external. Like I said, tons of oil underneath. I peeked underneath, but all the splash shields were still in place, so I couldn't see very much of the underside of the engine. The oil pan was soaked with oil, and there was oil dripping off of the drain plug, so lots of gasket leakage, which is expected for an engine that's, pushing 300,000 miles and likely hasn't had a reseal yet, so it's not out of the norm. Now, to fix this car, well, let me back up. One other issue, I talked to the owner. She called me after I left and said there was an issue with the power steering rack, that it shoots fluid out when you first start it up. Likely it's going to shoot fluid out when you steer. Likely a bad seal on the end of the rack for the piece of the rack that the inner tie rod bolts onto. So that would be a new steering rack, a used steering rack, or a reseal kit. I don't know if Subaru sells a reseal kit for that particular steering rack, nor have I ever resealed a steering rack before to know if I could even go about doing that repair. I did look at some. I looked up the part number for it to see if I had any vehicles that the steering rack would cross-reference over to, mainly Old Red, the 2006 Impreza of Brian's, but it looks like that's two different steering racks. Imprezas and Foresters share a lot of componentry, especially in suspension, but the steering rack seems to be different, so I can't steal that out of there. So as far as this goes, we negotiated our price. As I said before, the asking price on the ad was $2,000. That's quite an exorbitant amount of money for the condition of the vehicle. Kelley Blue Book on the car in poor condition or fair condition with the mileage came between $1,500 and $2,000. Now that would be a fair condition vehicle that has some wear, has a slight mechanical issue, some dents, some dings, the paint's not perfect, maybe needs a set of tires. But this car is in poor condition. It has a rod bearing failure, it has some mechanical issues, so it's much lower than that. Now, normally when I price out Subarus, when I go to buy these cars, I look at it either it's going to be a parts car or it's going to be a potential flip car, which I think this one just barely meets the criteria to be a flip car. We're going to do some math and see if it actually works out that way. But normally on a parts car, I normally cap myself off at $600. $300 to $600 is normally my marking range that I'll put into a good parts car that has lots of parts that I can utilize, body components, doors, fenders, hood, make sure there's good paint on it. If there is good driveline stuff and suspension stuff I can get off the car, extra bonus. If the interior is nice, extra bonus. If the engine or transmission is good, that's a super bonus for a parts car, but normally if it's in the parts range, it either has a failed transmission, a failed engine, or both. It's normally just the other components I'm getting for the price of the vehicle. So this one doesn't fall into that category because it does start, it does run, and it does move under its own power, so it's potentially a flip car. So normally flip cars are between $800 and $1,500 is where I like to be on them, depending on the model, the year, and the mileage. Now this is an 09, which is fairly new, relatively speaking. It's a Forester base model, so that's some points off. And then the real kicker is the mileage. 277,000 miles is very top end. A lot of people don't care about high mileage vehicles, but so many buyers focus on mileage. Now, after I've gone through a vehicle, the mileage doesn't matter that much. As long as I've gone through and made it mechanically sound, it doesn't matter how many miles is on it. Case in point, my 2002 LL Bean Outback that I drive every single day just about with 300,000 plus miles on it. I wouldn't hesitate to jump in that car and drive it to the West Coast and back, because I know that it's mechanically sound. The amount of mileage on the car doesn't matter as long as it's been properly cared for, maintained, and repairs have been done in a timely manner. So, this Forester, I said I would be all in between $800 and $1,200, so we settled on a $1,000 sale price. It is a little bit more than probably I'd want to put into it, given what I can sell it for once I get it cleaned up, which I looked at the Blue Book value on it there, and it in good condition. We can't get it to excellent condition, there's just no way. We can get it to good condition, and good condition private party is around, I think, going off memory here, I'll put a screenshot, $3,500, $4,000 range for this vehicle. So we have that to work with. We've got $1,000 in it so far, and we can probably get $3,500 to $4,000 out of it. So we need to fix the mechanical issues and get it sound. We need to clean it, detail it, and still be able to make ourselves at least $1,000 would be good, but you know, $1,000 is a good buffer. So we don't want to put more than about $2,500 to $3,000 into it, or $1,500 to $2,000 on top of the actual purchase price. So let's go through and see what we're going to need. One is the engine. So the expensive route here is to pull the engine and go through it and actually rebuild it. New rod and main bearings, a full engine seal kit from Subaru, which is about $350 last I checked. I don't know if prices have gone up on that. Prices for parts have gone up with inflation and everything going on right now, so I don't know what that is, but the last time I bought one it was about $300 to $350. Then I have to buy the head gaskets because the MLS head gaskets do not come in the engine seal kit for this engine. They're another $60. A thermostat and the gasket for the thermostat, that's about $30. Timing belt kit from Ison is going to be $300 to $250, somewhere in that range. I haven't priced them recently, but I'll put the prices on the screen. I'll go through and calculate this. I'm kind of going off the fly right now. To do the cylinder heads, machine them, make sure they're good. Check for drop valve guides, which would be common on this vehicle, this engine with this mileage. Looking about $500 on the top end to fully go through and fix everything, as long as there's no cracks in the heads. Machining, polishing the crank, I haven't done because I normally don't go into the short block. Normally we build from the short block up. It's normally not worth the money to go in and redo a short block with new bearings. But for the cost I'm going to have and the buffer I've got to work with, I'm going to have to go in and do the short block on this if I do Route 1, which is going and fixing the existing engine. So a bearing kit could be $100+, polishing the crank, depending on how bad it's tore up in there. I assume it's not that bad because it's not very loudly knocking. It's probably just started to happen, so there's probably minimal actual damage in there. It's more just the bearings and not so much worried about tearing up the rod end or the crankshaft, but that's probably a couple $100 right there. I never count my labor just because, you know, I'm doing it for my own enjoyment. I do it to teach you guys in videos, and you know, that's just the way it goes. So I don't really ever count my labor. I know a lot of people get aggravated that I don't count labor cost when I do these vehicles and stuff, but you know, that's just the way I do it. So with everything totaled up, we're going to have a price on screen now for how much I'm going to have in the engine. We're going to figure out about a seal kit or a used steering rack. We know we're going to have that. Other than that, I don't know about ball joints, which they're about $30 to $40 a piece. The struts are likely the original. You know, there's several different things we could have going on here that we don't know about, because that's the bad thing about buying these cars when you can't drive them. You don't know the condition of the transmission, the driveline, the prop shaft, CV axles, anything like that, or wheel bearings. So we could have other mechanical issues to worry about. One positive, I did turn the air conditioning on, and the compressor did cycle on, and it did blow cold air. So we know we got good air conditioning, so that's check plus. So that's number one. That's our number one way to go. Or there's plan two, and this is the absolute cheapest way, the most maximization of our money on this car, is to take Old Red's engine, this late EJ253 that needs very minimal work, rocker cover gaskets and spark plug tube seals, and that should probably be about it. Maybe a rear main seal, maybe an oil pan reseal, and that should basically have it ready to drop into that Forester. That is our most cost-effective means of getting that car back up and running mechanically wise for the engine. So as you just saw, option two is to pull the engine out of Old Red, the 2006 2.5i Impreza. That engine is in good mechanical condition. All it needs is a few gaskets. That would save us a lot of money on the engine aspect of fixing this flip up. Then we could focus on the other stuff without a lot of cost incurred. And that would make our bottom line on the money we could potentially make on selling this flip much better. So likely that's the route I'm gonna go. I'll take that actual engine that came in the car and set it aside as a core, or one potentially to rebuild for another project later on, another flip vehicle, because it's likely still in fairly good condition. All right guys, so I've done a little bit of math for you, and we'll figure out what we can potentially look at making on this vehicle if nothing else comes awry from what I was able to check on the initial look over of the vehicle. So a little bit of a correction on the value of it as is. Kelley Blue Book on the fair, because they don't do a poor condition value, is $1,473 to $2,590. Again, that's for fair, not poor, which this vehicle is poor condition, so much lower than the $1,473. Now, the good condition, or very good condition, which we can get it in between, ranges from $2,769 to $4,126. So, option number one, going through and rebuilding the engine that's in it and fixing things. So, purchase price is $1,000. The engine for the reseal, we're looking at $500 for the heads, $350 for the gasket kit, another miscellaneous $200 for the bottom end of it. Let's put in $80 for 2 ball joints, because likely it'll need ball joints just because of the age and the mileage and the condition I've seen of the vehicle. Miscellaneous fluids and gaskets, let's put $500 buffer in there just for air filter, transmission filter fluid, things like that we might want to go ahead and replace. The aftermarket power steering rack would be $300, but the preferred way to go is an OEM used rack. I found those from between $140 and $200 on eBay from wrecking yards. So if we go the rebuild route, we're looking at a total of $3,480 investment with the purchase price of the vehicle. Now, if we go the opposite route and go option 2, using the engine out of Old Red and resealing it, saving us quite a bit of money, then we've got a $1,000 purchase price. We've got $300 for the free engine plus seals and gaskets and miscellaneous fluid, $80 again for ball joints, $500 again miscellaneous buffer for filters and fluids we may need and gaskets. Aftermarket steering rack, again, $300, a used OE steering rack, $140 to $200, so about $2,180 invested. Now, let's say that we go and get this car to good to very good condition, and we sell it for conservatively between $3,500 and $4,000. For the sake of the math, let's say we get $4,000 out of it. Remember, the Blue Book value is $2,769 to $4,126. So we're going to say we get good top dollar for it and get $4,000 out of this car. So if we go the rebuild method, we're going to make about $520 in profit, which isn't bad, but it's not really worth my time to only make $520 on this car. Now, if we go the opposite route with the used engine that we already have, then we can make $1,820, which is a much better paycheck on this vehicle and a much better turn on this flip. So, optimally, we're going to go for the second route and shoot for that $1,820. Again, this is all hypothetical because we don't have the car here yet. We haven't purchased it. We haven't done our post-purchase inspection yet. We did a pre-purchase inspection, which was a quick look around because I don't bring everything with me all the time to look at these cars. I can pretty much eyeball it walking around, peek underneath, and get a general idea. But it's a little bit different than when we get it here, get it on jack stands, and thoroughly go front to back. We find stuff that we didn't see before just looking around it and listening to it run. So these are tentative numbers between $520 or $1,820 of pure profit on this flip. So hopefully this all works out. Hopefully I go get the car in the morning and we can start on this series on this 2009 Forester. So the 2007 Outback, the SUS, the sports utility sedan, the $300 Outback, that flip car, I'm actually meeting a buyer this afternoon. Hopefully that car sells, and when it does, we'll have a sale video recapping everything we went through this summer, the purchase price of the car, how much money I had in the car, what I sell it for, and what I make on it. So we will have another wrap-up video on another flip Subaru in the future, hopefully within the week. So be sure to look out for that if you're interested in the flipping of Subarus. So thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. I will see you guys in the next one.